In a world of change, one thing stays the same. Novac's base rates have remained unchanged for a decade, even as people use more electric devices than ever before. Novac continues to keep rates low and reliability high. Novac holds base rates down, even as other prices climb, because you have enough change in your life. Novac, keeping life bright.
How's your mental health? I'm listening with Alanis Morissette.
When it first started, I would have my nightly panic attacks, but then I started getting really curious about all the sensations. Like, I just really started looking at, okay, so chest is, I got really kind of granular in observing the details of what was really going on with the breath and my jaw. It's just survival strategy. It's cortisol cooking nonstop. Chronic stress is trauma.
Explore more at imlistening.org.
We welcome in, as we do every Tuesday, the hardest working beat man in the business, a beat man for all seasons, a guy that we go to for information here in Pittsburgh, PA. Jeff Hathorn joining us here. Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
Morning, guys. What a great morning.
It is. It is a wonderful morning. It is. It's going to be a steamy one today.
Sticky.
So be careful. It's muggy. It's not the heat that'll get you. It's the humidity. So just so you know that, Jeff.
So I've heard.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Jeff, what should we make of this? Because I look at it's not just necessarily Devin Bush's one tweet. It's an evolution in kind of a dark place that his Twitter handle is going to, or at least his Twitter threads. The way that he's carried himself on social media, I guess, over the past 72 hours or so, it's just out and out weird. Is that right for you?
Yeah, and I forget the fact that if you love cats or anything, that's just bizarre for a human to tweet, and then not to just say, hey, I made a mistake, or hey, this wasn't what I meant, or it's kind of to double down on some of those some of the comments that he's getting in response. That I don't know where he's at or who he's hanging out with, but obviously I think there are some things for Devin Bush's sake that he may not think he needs to change, but that he should alter to make, if nothing else, to make his life a little easier.
The irony for me, Jeff, is that a week ago, Devin Bush was criticizing grown men who have TikTok and that they should stay away from him. And yet his two most prominent teammates with TikTok, Chase Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster, I would think have a much better handle on how to use social media than Devin Bush does at this point.
Yeah, I just don't get it. Listen, everybody's got their opportunity to say what they want, and we live in this social media era. But, man, there are just things that you don't post and then don't defend. Like, we all make mistakes. Admit you made a mistake and kind of move on. But, man, I just don't get – and hey, guys, let's be honest. There have been guys that have played for the Steelers that are different personalities and are really good football players, and that's the bottom line. Can the guy play football and will he have a good season? But, man, when you're tweeting stuff like that, it kind of makes you wonder where you're at, and not just where you're at, as a football player, but where you're at as a person.
Fan Hotline brought to you by the Workers' Compensation Law Firm of Hall and Capitas. Jeff Hathorn joining us here on the Fan Hotline. You've been at the stadium for a lot of things. You've seen a lot of different things on television. You've taken in a lot of Pirates baseball. That said, how bad was our friend Zach Banner's first pitch?
Oh, man. Unfortunately, I think Chase DeYoung watched too much of it, and that carried over into the first inning. I love Zach's personality, and he's a guy who gets how to have fun on social media.
It was bad.
You don't even have anything more to say, do you?
I know. Come on.
I love the fact that he got on the mound. I love that he looked in for a sign, and I was expecting good things at that point. And then it just all went bad.
In all seriousness, though, like, this is another guy, Zach Banner, a young guy, too. I mean, he's not as young as Devin Bush. Devin Bush isn't 23 yet for a couple more weeks. But Zach Banner, even a guy who hasn't even played a snap of a regular season game, Najee Harris. There are so many, Cam Hayward, everything he does for his charity. So many guys, and I referenced Juju and Claypool earlier, so many guys on this team understand how to use social media to their benefit and for the greater benefit of people in general. And it's just, I don't know who it is, but somebody in that room, and I know Zach jokingly said when I get back to town and Devin Bush gets back, I'm going to take his phone away. But somebody legitimately needs to walk up to him and be like, listen, hand me that device and let me show you what you can do with it and what positive can come from it. Up to and including, you can actually market yourself and make more money with this device instead of just making people angry.
And Chris, you bring a good point, because immediately you see people on Twitter, well, Tomlin's lost the room, or Art Rooney's asleep, just letting letting guys control everything and letting guys getting away with everything. Really, where these guys listen is from their peers. Coaches can put mandates and managements can suspend or fine or whatever that they want, but these guys really listen to their peers. And you're right, if even if Juju, if guys that are very active like Zach, or talk to Devin, and Banner and Bush became really tight because they were rehabbing together every day. So I would think if there's anyone that probably could get through to him, or at least explain to him, like even last night, Banner threw that horrible opening pitch, and he gets on Twitter and says, okay, how bad was it? Because he knows he could have fun with it. I mean, if you want to post serious stuff, that's your prerogative. Or you want to post crazy stuff, that's your prerogative. But you're much better off with social media having fun with it. Because the other part of what Devin Bush is gonna find is the first bad game he has, all those people that were really offended by that tweet, some of them are going to come after. And we all know what it's like. When any of us miss a prediction, those people never forget. And they're going to be coming after him and making his life harder than it should be.
Let me ask you about the information that's going to be disseminated from camp. Because fans can't necessarily go as much, they'll be able to go to the stadium some, but they're not going to be able to go to the south side and take in camp. How much information is someone like you or someone like Jim or someone like Josh Roundtree, who covers stuff for us and is out there beating the bushes every day, how much are you going to be able to deliver to the consumer versus when camp is at Latrobe?
Honestly, I don't know. It's going to be a new world. So when
I'm sorry to jump you with that question. I think some people are wondering that.
We don't know. We're trying to figure it out. But I will tell you this, and people may not know this. At Latrobe, they have normally 2-a-days, and the morning is kind of a walkthrough typically. Although they will do more, especially with the rookies, and we'll watch it, but we're not allowed to report on any of it. So we'll see what's going on, but we're not allowed to share what's going on because it's not in a public setting. So, and the same at practices. I think it's going to be a similar thing with the exception of the open days at Heinz Field, but I don't know that for sure. We're still waiting to find out some of those details.
Jeff Hathorn with us here on the Fan Morning Show, presented to you by Matt Mertz Plumbing. Let me switch gears. We are 5 days away now from the first round of the Major League Baseball draft. What's your feeling on what you think the Pirates do and how much of it will be affected by signability in the case of Jack Leiter, especially, who it sounds like is now trying to angle his way to Boston at number 4?
Yeah, I went months saying that, it's going to be one of those two pitchers, but now, I mean, just everything is pointing to Ben Cherington taking a shot at one of these high school shortstops. And, there's great talent. Obviously, with high school guys, there's a little bit more risk. And, they may not feel with Leiter. Forget the John Elway fear scenario of him trying to hold out or go back to school and not, being the number 1 overall pick, going Mark Appel on the Pirates. I think that Cherington is going to run the risk and try to find even though he's not projected to be, find one of these shortstops to be a Bryce Harper. That could be that superstar player that they wouldn't be able to afford, but might be able to develop over a couple of years, and figure that they're not close enough to where Jack Leiter or even Kumar Rocker can make an impact with them yet.
It's different now, and you and I, and we've talked about this in the clubhouse before. Whenever there's a feeling, the clubhouse is not necessarily how it was in the past, being wide open and stuff like that. When it gets closer to trade deadline day, and I remember having this conversation with you probably 5-8 years ago or so, Jeff, about how there's just this cloud you can feel in the room when it gets into July, and people are kind of looking over their shoulder. Does Frazier have that feel about him in the stuff that you've been able to interact at all? Or is that different now because, the clubhouse isn't open, you can't get necessarily a sense on that? Or is there that sort of cloud kind of following him around with that team?
Yeah, I mean, we're not around them as much, as you point out, as we have been in the past. But yes, and Frazier knows it. He's aware of all of this stuff. And I think while he won't say it publicly because he doesn't want to offend anyone, he just wants this trade deadline to be over and figure out where he's going to be playing. But yes, you could tell with the team, you could tell everywhere, really with the Pirates, it's like, okay, where's Frazier going to be here in a couple of weeks? And when are they going to pull that trigger so we could get a better idea of what the return is for him, and how they move forward without, their best hitter. I mean, even last night, he's just so solid at the plate. And I'm thinking for teams like the White Sox that need a second baseman, like, what are you waiting for? Like, why aren't you leaning more? I'm not saying this just because we cover the Pirates, but why aren't you leaning more to the Pirates and going out and getting this guy? Because there are no signs that he is anything but one of the best hitters in the league right now.
If with Ben Cherington still trying to fill out an organizational pipeline, and he is still trying to do that, he's got a lot of work left to do in that regard, Jeff. Do you think the haul that he gets or does not get on a Frazier deal impacts at all his willingness to listen at all on a Brian Reynolds offer, if anybody has a real legitimate one in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I really don't think that they're listening on Brian Reynolds. I mean, if a team were to, offer 4 of its top 10 prospects, sure, they'd be crazy not to listen or examine it. I just don't think they have interest. They know Brian Reynolds, that type of talent, they could never afford in free agency. And, they think of him. I think they think more of him and how can we lock this guy up to be part of this core that we want, more so than trading him in any way. Again, that doesn't mean that if someone, just knocks their socks off with some type of deal. And I know the Braves are one of those teams that apparently are trying to kick the tires on Brian Reynolds and see what that cost is. And they have a lot of prospects. I think you have to hold on to a couple, and I think Reynolds is one of those guys they really want to hold on to.
Do you think Brian Reynolds will get another contract here in Pittsburgh, get that contract, the one beyond his initial contract?
Man, and you guys have talked to him. He is the toughest guy to read.
Right.
He is a great poker face, and you just don't get a sense of if he wants to sign or if he wants to explore free agency. And honestly, because he's under control through 2025, I don't know if he's really thought about that. And I don't know how hard or what kind of deal the Pirates are offering him to extend him through arbitration and a few years into free agency. So I just don't think we're at that point because unlike with Adam Frazier, who's a free agent after next year, it's not imminent with him.
Well, who's the next player then, in your opinion, Jeff, and is he on the roster currently, who does get that second contract from the Pirates? Because it's early on, but it doesn't seem like Hayes has heard any offers in the last year or so that have interested him in signing on the dotted line for a long-term contract that buys out maybe a year or two of arbitration. Is there anybody currently on this roster or in the everyday lineup that we do see a second contract for?
No, but they're talking to Hayes, and that's a good sign that they're trying to get a deal done. And I think he's trying to figure out where this organization is going. They've got some, prove it to these guys, to show them that they're moving in the right direction and it's not just a bunch of talk. And that may not be, obviously, through this season or even next. Some of these guys may wait. Reynolds will be the next option. Beyond that, I don't know who on this roster. I suggest this. If there's one guy I'd like to lock up for a few years because of the position depth in the organization, the way he handles himself, and the importance he could have on young pitchers, I'm signing Jacob Stallings to a 3 or 4 year deal. I think it can happen. I think you can get him pretty cheap. And if you somehow in a trade or in the draft, you end up taking a catcher number 1 and you want to make him the number 1, you could slide Stallings down into the 2 spot, and I don't think you'd have much resistance. That would be the guy that I would sign to a 3 or 4 year contract because he could help transition you into that phase where you want to be.
Last thing before we let you go, Jeff Hathorn, a beat man for all seasons, works on everything. The website, ton of hits, people going to it. They look at it every morning, especially when they wake up to see what's the evolution of the stories overnight, but then in through the day of the workday. What's going on 937thefan.com, and what have you been working on, and what will you put out there in the future the next couple days?
Yeah, there's so many angles that happened with the game yesterday. So about Ben Gamel and Chase DeYoung, and the new hero first baseman, and Brian Hayes. But it's not just the first baseman now filling in for Colin Moran. There's a guy at AA who had a huge year in 2019, and he's starting to heat up again. We're going to post that a little later today, the story of Mason Martin and how he's able to kind of find it again and find this home run power and what he does and some of the exercises he does to generate that power for a 6-footer and how close he might be to the majors. That's the story. He's a really nice young man who may not be that far off from being at PNC Park.
I don't know if John Nagalski has anything to say about it.
Right about that. Watch out. Jeff Hathorn. Jeff, we thank you. As always, we'll catch up again later on in the week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Working so hard through the holiday weekend. He just crushes it all the time.
How's your mental health? I'm listening with Alanis Morissette.
When it first started, I would have my nightly panic attacks, but then I started getting really curious about all the sensations. Like, I just really started looking at, okay, so chest is, I got really kind of granular in observing the details of what was really going on with the breath and my jaw. It's just survival strategy. It's cortisol cooking nonstop. Chronic stress is trauma.
Explore more at imlistening.org.
Introducing Odyssey exclusive stations. We've curated hundreds of new music stations available only on Odyssey by music fans for music fans. Check out our Masters of Metal, playing the pioneers of heavy metal, or Katie Neal's Leading Ladies for a salute to the women of country. Like K-pop? Odyssey has that too. We've even invited a few of our famous friends to create stations just for Odyssey listeners like you. It's your pop, country, rock, hip-hop, 80s, funk, jam band, yacht rock soundtrack for your day by Odyssey.